Welcome to the very first episode of the DeveLOVED Podcast. My name is Ashley, but most call me Ash, and I'm so happy to have you here today. I am a mom, wife, coach, counselor, educator, but also I'm just a person who is still trying to figure things out in life right alongside you. To be honest, this moment is both thrilling and absolutely terrifying to me. Putting your voice out into the world, your real voice, it comes with a lot of vulnerability. But that's exactly why I wanted to start this podcast. I took a leap of faith, a lot of caffeine, leaned on the support I had, and I had to stop making excuses. Like, I don't have the right mic yet, I don't have this or that, or I need this setup. And I just pushed past the doubt that tried and honestly did slow me down. I spent years coaching and counseling people, sitting across from them as they wrestled with the same struggles I faced myself. Self-doubt, shame, people-pleasing, the fear of not being enough. I can go on forever. And through both my work and my own healing journey, I've come to believe something very strongly. Growth is proof that broken doesn't mean finished. It means ready to rebuild stronger. So in college, I took a criminology class, and I heard about this theory called broken windows theory. It basically says that if a building has one broken window and it's left unrepaired, it sends a signal. Nobody cares and nobody's paying attention. And that one broken window can lead to more broken windows, then graffiti, then crime, until the whole neighborhood starts to decay. Besides applying it to criminology and sociology in the world, I started to think about healing, growth, the psychology of it. It got me thinking, aren't our souls the same way? A few unintended wounds can grow into much deeper struggles. I drafted something in my heart that's become a cornerstone of my work, what I call the broken soul philosophy. It's something that has guided not just my personal journey, but my professional identity. When life experiences and hardships like rejection, abandonment, grief, trauma, when they leave cracks in us and we ignore them, it doesn't stop at one crack. The brokenness spreads. It shows up in our choices, our relationships, our self-worth. And before long, we've built a life around fear and doubt instead of trust and wholeness. But here's the hope and the work that needs to be done. Just like fixing one broken window can change the trajectory of a whole neighborhood, healing even just one crack can shift the course of your entire life. And sometimes the first step doesn't even happen deep inside. It starts on the surface, like tidying up your space, building a new routine, even something as simple as a haircut. Small shifts that re-spark motivation and purpose and open the door to deeper growth. That's how you set yourself up for success. You can't heal everything, but you can start with small steps to make you feel better, to help you grow better. And that's what this podcast is about. It's not about being perfect, but about noticing the broken places and choosing to repair them and maintain them. It's about creating a safe space where people can tell the truth, be held accountable, and grow. This idea is what inspired the name of my company, DeveLOVED. It combines development and love because I truly believe growth is an act of self-love and love from others. Our slogan is development and growth. That's our love language. And I say this because I feel like we need two things. First, a loving ear to listen. And second, a trained mind to help uncover the deeper layers of why we feel stuck, broken, or unable to grow. Sometimes, even when we can't put feelings into words ourselves, so much healing can begin just through the act of telling our story. We might not know exactly what we're feeling or why, but just talking and telling your story and letting it come to the surface, it can help bring clarity and connection. In my work with individuals, couples, families, and even children, I always meet people where they're at, cognitively, emotionally, physically, and sometimes even with deep trauma. Because healing isn't about forcing yourself into who you should be. It's about being seen as you are and where you are, and walking together toward who you are becoming. And most importantly, I want everyone to remember healing is ongoing. It's not a destination, it is a journey, and it may never be finished. So set yourself up for a beautiful ride. There may be some detours and some stops along the way, but don't turn back. Keep going forward. Keep riding along this journey. And if you don't have anyone, I hope that this podcast and this experience brings together a community of people that can help you through that. I'll get into the pillars of my little philosophy that I came up with many, many moons ago, the broken soul philosophy, which again is just something that I just drafted and came up with in my heart and my soul and my life. I'll go through that in future episodes. I created a full framework around it, steps, foundation, and even content to give the philosophy a real life. But for now, I'm going to start with the heart of what this podcast is about. Before we go any further, I really want to lay out what I call the golden rule of this podcast. This is our foundation. Every story you hear here is meant to heal, not to shame. People who share their experiences, even if they're anonymous, are choosing to be vulnerable, and that deserves respect. Now, that doesn't mean we avoid honesty. Sometimes accountability will sting because it forces us to see where we've been playing small or blaming others. But there's a huge difference between hurtful and helpful, and the goal here is to always help people grow. So whether you are listening or commenting online, I asked that you frame your thoughts with compassion, because words can either tear someone down or help them rise. And here, it's not about judgment. It's about creating a space of development, healing, and growth through honesty and community. I want to start this podcast by talking about self-doubt, because honestly, it's the very thing that almost kept me from doing this at all. Self-doubt has been an obstacle in so many parts of my life, and I'm sure everyone can attest to that. It's this little voice or feeling that you feel that you give so much reason to and so much life to, and it stunts your growth. It stunted my growth in my business and chasing all these dreams that live deep in my heart in this podcast. I kept telling myself things like, why me? Who am I to think that I could be successful in this or in that? And for a very long time, I've let that voice win. And sometimes it still tries to creep up and compete with my goals, with my desires. I can't tell you how many times I recorded an episode only to delete it. I wrote scripts, outlines, only to let them collect dust. And I convinced myself that the conditions had to be absolutely perfect in order for me to be ready. But this is what I've learned. If you wait for perfection, you're going to wait forever. Self-doubt will always give you a reason to pause. What shifted for me was realizing that it wasn't about getting rid of self-doubt. It's about learning to move forward with it. Self-doubt will tell you, you are not ready. You are not worthy. You are not enough. But growth says, do it anyway. For me, starting this podcast feels terrifying. It feels vulnerable to put myself, my voice out there, knowing that people will have opinions, judgments, and critiques. But it also feels empowering because I'm choosing to silence those doubtful voices with the sound of my growth. And even if only 10 people listen to this, even if it's just my family and my friends, that's okay because I'm honoring the dream that I've carried since I was very young. I found a journal page not too long ago within old memory stuff. And on that journal page, I dated it on the top. I was about 12 years old. I made a list of goals for my life. And I can vividly remember the day I wrote them. That one little journal page took me back, took me on this ride, a very emotional ride, but a very needed ride. I remember sitting in my purple room, journaling in my book. I remember the cover had these flowers on it, each page blank with lines and light green flowers bordering the pages. And I wrote a list of goals. One of the goals was to help people, to create conversations, and maybe even one day host something like a talk show. I wanted to help bring those goals to life, to honor the little girl who wrote them and who still lives inside me. Because the truth is, success has two lives. One as the idea that you have and you hold in your heart. And the second is the action that you finally take to help bring that idea to life. So here I am, finally putting that dream into reality. Still scared, still doubting, but also deeply grateful and very excited to begin. That's why for episode 2, I themed it around overcoming self-doubt. Because this isn't just my story. It's something we all wrestle with in many different ways. So when I put it in my head that this is going to happen, this podcast was going to come to life, I created a podcast request form and I put it on different community pages on different social media platforms. And I received a few stories and I was really excited that even without people knowing my voice and who I am and how this was going to turn out, they decided to share. One of the very first stories submitted to me came from a woman who wanted to remain anonymous. So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to call her Sandra. Self-doubt led her to a breaking point at work. She burned out and she crashed out. And she says, it wasn't pretty and quite embarrassing what I did. And eventually, because of what happened, she lost her job that she once truly loved. She told me, quote, "It was the years of convincing myself I didn't deserve more until I finally couldn't carry it anymore. I watched someone get the promotion I deserved, not because they had more experience than me, but because they were braver and more confident. I was told that role could have been mine if I tried for it." So the crash out that happened at work, the one that she describes in her input form, it led her to revealing a lot of her personal life, and it made her realize it wasn't just that one moment. It was a history of self-doubt that just came boiling out. That hit me hard because It shows how self-doubt doesn't just steal opportunities in the moment. It builds. And if we ignore it long enough, our body, our mind, our spirit, it will eventually collapse under the weight of it all. Now, the awareness she carries today, she says it isn't anger. She's not mad at her coworker. She's not even angry at the company. What she regrets is how long she let that voice run her life, not just her career. Because when you silence yourself long enough, your system will eventually silence you. You go on autopilot. You play it safe. You don't take risks. You just glide through life. This story made me stop and ask myself a few questions. And I want to ask you too. So feel free to jot them down. Or if you see this online somewhere, feel free to comment. But where in your life are you carrying silent resentment because you didn't speak up for yourself? What opportunities have you convinced yourself to ignore because doubt told you not to even try? And this last question is maybe one of the harder ones to really reflect on and work through. But because of all that silence, because of self-doubt, because you haven't worked towards a certain goal or a desire, how does that look on you today? What has it affected? For me, I can personally say that small self-doubt of not starting on my goals and working on them snowballs into even the smallest decisions I have to make every day. And that takes a toll on my mind, my body, and my everything. And it's not sustainable. It's not okay. We have to work better for ourselves. Stories like Sandra, it reminds me why these conversations matter and why I want to keep having them with you. Her full story, along with many others, is ready in episode 2 that will be out next week. I am so excited to share all of it with you and to continue this conversation. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I'm still figuring things out, not just for my podcast, but in my own life. And I'm working on those cracks in my soul, in my heart, just like so many of you. This podcast is not about having all the answers. It's about learning, sharing, and growing together. Before we close, I want to leave you with a couple of questions to reflect on and kind of leads us to our next episode. Where do you notice self-doubt showing up for you this week? Not 10 years ago, not 2 months ago, not even last week. Just this week. I want you to go through your week with some self-awareness and think about how self-doubt is showing up for you. And how might you respond differently if you do self-trust instead? For me, just right now, recording this podcast right before I started, I circled, literally paced around my office thinking, am I going to do this? Should I really do this? And in a moment, I said to myself, just trust. Trust yourself. Trust 12-year-old you who wrote it down and who spoke innocently from her heart. So think about that. Where are you noticing self-doubt show up for you right now, this week, presently? And instead of listening to self-doubt, what would happen if you listened to self-trust? If something from today connected with you, I would love to hear your thoughts, and you can share them with me via email, on my podcast request link, or If you see a discussion happening on one of my social media platforms, feel free to chime in and share what you feel comfortable sharing. You can find links to all of that on my website, www.develovedco.com. That's DeveLovedCo.com. When we can safely and honestly share our story, we discover truth. And the truth may not always feel right. It may not always feel good, but it will help you grow. For me, that's the heartbeat of this work. Real growth comes from real conversations.